Yes,
Okay.
all looks good. Yes, all looks
Okay.
good.
Good. Thank you very much. So,
Thank
do you
you.
want to start?
So,
Tara, do
yes,
you
would
want
you
to
like me
start?
to start with the
Yeah.
understand with the introduction to concept?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So here we are so honored and we're so happy to have Professor Albrecht Classen. This is how you
Yeah.
pronounce the name?
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, he is University Distinguished Professor of German Studies at the University of Arizona. He has a broad range of research interests covering the history of German and European literature from about 800 to 1600. He has currently published 136 books, mashallah, and well over 855 articles dealing with comparative issues, gender topics, environmental concerns, and cultural historical themes. In 2017, he received the rank of Grand Knight Commander of the Most Noble Order of the Three Lions. We're extremely, extremely honored to have you today. Thank you
Thank
so much, Professor Klassen.
you. I thank you very much. And for everyone who just joined us, I wanted to re-emphasize how much I feel honored, very greatly honored that you want me to talk to you about this topic. And also to repeat what we said before, this makes it possible for all of us involved in growing into a global community because research knows no boundaries in terms of religion, language, culture, politics, but rather this is universally shared principles. So it is a great pleasure for me today to address this huge topic, academic research, and how to expand our knowledge and share it with the world. This is really a glorious approach and gives me a deep, warm feeling about what we are doing. And I have, of course, to say that in light of all my books and articles, I think I know something about how to do research, but and I will try to share as much as I can. There are always new or additional angles, but I think it is of extreme importance that we are all interested in the same question and want to find out really how to approach this topic. Um, I also wanted to share with you that I am editor-in-chief of three different journals. And so one is my own, medievistic. So I'm dealing mostly with medieval literature, culture, history, music, arts, and so forth. And the other one is humanities. It's an online journal. And so I'm constantly exposed to a wide variety of a range of different topics. And so, of course, I cannot know everything, but I can very quickly assess whether a paper is well researched and well grounded in the relevant research literature. And then things look already much different than a superficial paper. And my third journal, where I'm the current editor in chief, is research in social and humanities science. So I am, yes, I am specialized. I'm a Germanist in my training, but I have vastly left this behind, and I am a comparatist. I'm a cultural historian, and I investigate history of mentality, history of emotions, history of religion, philosophy, the arts, and so forth. So hopefully, what I will then share or try to share with you will not be simply my narrow research area, but hopefully in a way so that everyone can somehow profit from my comments if they are valid. So let me go into it. I have about
Yes,
maybe four.
definitely. We're looking forward.
Yeah, thank you. So, and just a couple of general comments, which you all probably will agree with anyway. but it's important to reflect upon that every time we start again. We need to know why we do research, why we do the research in this or that area, what is the relevance, and I have here listed, well, we're dealing with facts, knowledge, but ultimately really with wisdom. And that means with transformation. Um, this was just brought home to me recently. I was reading for review a new edition of some plays written by 10th century female playwright in Germany in Latin, and the editor made some really good observations correlating them with the philosophy by Martin Heidegger, who in the 1930s and who is now regarded as one of the most influential philosophers, basically saying that what we do as teachers, we all are teachers, and research contributes to our teaching. Um, yes, we are working with facts. And yes, we really want our students, colleagues, and the public to gain knowledge. But all of that fades away and becomes useless if we don't aim for wisdom. So, in other words, research, true research, should really achieve the goal of transforming people, so that our results, our observations, our discussions lead to global transformation. And as I will repeat myself later, then ultimately to the improvement of this world. Now, if we were doing research just for research's sake, we would become very esoteric and ultimately a little bit meaningless. So, as we already said a little bit in our conversation before, but research needs to be shared. And we always, as researchers, need to be really clear about our responsibility in political terms. No, I shouldn't say political, I should say social terms, because the public, with the tax money, supports us. I mean, of course, there are sometimes private universities, but I'm talking about the vast majority of universities or any kind of other institution of higher learning. We are obligated to the public. And I feel a very strong obligation, moral and ethical obligation, to share what I find out with the public. And so I am very delighted that we are now in that framework. And so you're recording this, and hopefully this will then all help the next generation, because we all have to learn this over and over again. This is just normal. Yeah, but I think this is important that I said that so that we understand why we do the research. We do the research for people, not just for machines. Yeah, we can address later AI a little bit, but I think it goes already a little bit in this direction. So, and just to end here, this slide, this wisdom leads to transformation, and transformation should lead to progress, but not just simply monetary progress, but progress that finds its best expression in the notion of happiness. And that's, of course, what lots of philosophers in the Arabic world, in the Christian world, in the Western world, and so forth, and Indian world have already addressed. So we are simply joining a long-standing chorus of really wise people, and hopefully we all can then agree that this is for us, and we are sharing that in our humanity. It might sound all a little bit very esoteric and too philosophical, but I think it's fundamental and really grounding our field, and I mean with that all research, in a social context. So the question is, of course, how to do good research. Lots of people use that word research in a very inflationary way. They might say, oh, I need to find out about the latest cooking recipe. So I'm doing some research in Google and then I find a few examples. So I'm a researcher. No, not at all. A person who consults Google or Wikipedia or a literary encyclopedia or whatever there might be online is doing some work, learns something, learns some facts maybe, but is not research. Okay, that's a fundamental difference. We need to understand who we are as researchers and hence how we must do good research. And okay, now let me dive into that now. So, okay. So what you can see on the top right, what does it take to be a successful researcher? And I just have three words. It is really thorough investigation, critical analysis, and a solid conclusion. Yeah, so you notice I have immediately added adjectives so that the investigation, analysis, and conclusion do not stand in a vacuum, but rather they all are contributing to what we mean with good research. And ultimately, that's of course a key question, how to get published. So research that then disappears in a drawer or in some computer file and is not being shared is ultimately useless. You know, you can have the most brilliant minds in this world, but if they don't share that, and that is through publishing. And publishing, scholarly publishing, proves to be mostly, at least, the vehicle to ensure that your research is good. So all these factors play together and form a whole. So I will also address this and that. If I leave out certain components later, I'm happy to stay on as long as you want to answer all kinds of questions or join a discussion. So that's the same thing, sharing of knowledge, but it needs to be in a solid way, trustworthy. So, for example, we are facing in the United States terrible situation with science. Our Secretary for Health is a person who denies COVID, who claims that vaccination is useless and that vaccination with Pfizer, BioNTech, or others can lead to autism in children. That is totally counter to 99.9% of all scientists. Same thing with climate change. 99.9% of all scientists know and agree there are major changes in this world. And those who share them the wrong knowledge destroy and harm us in very dangerous way. So I'm sorry to say, in my own country right now, particularly the natural scientists suffer very badly because of massive cuts into the research grants. And so this is really a very, very bad situation. And if you cannot do publishing, if you cannot share knowledge, then suddenly we are in a cul-de-sac. A lot of people are joining. I'm very happy. So this is great. But I need to move this a little bit. Okay. So what is the ultimate point of research in publishing? As I said, knowledge. So we need to get knowledge so that we can develop wisdom. But this knowledge needs to be really tested. And whatever it might mean, this is a whole different and a philosophical lecture, but truth. This is the most difficult thing. How do we find truth? And I know this is a vague term. What is truth? How do we determine what is truth? But I think good research leads to truth. And I will go into that a little bit more in a while, but we know that today we are in an age where sort of conspiracy theories are rampant, where online sites share so much wrong information, and it's getting harder and harder for us as researchers to maintain our position. I mean, there are, for example, more and more people who believe the flat earth theory. Flat earth, come on, that is so stupid. But anyway, who am I to blame anyone? So, but ultimately, the goal, of course, is that we improve the world. And we in the humanities, literary studies, philosophical studies, historical studies, contribute in exactly the same way to that improvement as medical researchers, as physicists, and so forth. Um, okay, so.
Hello. Good afternoon. This is Anna with Seniors Care. I'm calling to review the new 2026 Medicare Additional Best.
Excuse me, this I tried to. Yeah, I am now do not call. Okay, so excuse me. So then we as people are simply required to research and to grow. And I say that's why we have a brain and that's why we exist. So what does that mean? We as people have a natural sense of curiosity. We need to do research. And in a way, I almost would say once we stop doing research in small or large scale, we stop living. I mean, in a way, this is the sense of curiosity. And once we're no longer curious about our world and are curious about our own faith, whatever it might be, then we really stop thinking, and that's the end of our life. So I think research, in a very global terms, has a philosophical meaning. So in this regard, also research helps us to find ourselves and hence to contribute creatively to this world. And with the first phrase, I mean, when you discover that you're really interested, let's say, in certain chemical compounds, or you more want really to discover a panacea for cancer, or whatever it might be, then that means that's you. You are driven. You want to find out. And I would say those people who do research because they are forced to do so, maybe as part of their job, are rather unhappy people. Or I'm afraid that they are rather unhappy. So research really means I find myself. That's what I want to do. And that's where I am strong. That's what I can do, possibly. Okay. And so I make a bold, a very broad claim, but I think it's very important. Scholarship, that's what we do in the humanities, is basically the same as science. In the British English, we often don't make that difference. And we hear, well, we are all scientists. No, in the humanities, we are not scientists, we are scholars, which it means basically the same thing. But in the humanities, I call us scholars. We investigate. In the science, we call them scientists. But as I say below, we use the same research and analytic tools.
Oh, and they have dragon.
So here are two terms, and maybe I could ask that people mute themselves. There's a bit of background noise. Scott, could you maybe try to mute people? I don't want to talk against.
No, I need to take my gas mask because I'll get high from the residual smell of weed in there.
Hello, everyone. Would you please mute your mics? Hello, everyone. Okay. I'll take care of that. Thank you,
Yeah,
Professor.
thank you. We know that's very human. Okay, but let me just highlight now these two terms. both in the science as well as in the humanities, or in social science and medical research, we use verification and falsification. So verification is basically the same thing as falsification. That means we use, and you can see all my terms here, we use critical analysis, we employ rational arguments, we pursue a logical development of our thoughts, and try to establish and build convincing structures and presentations. So verification means that you always check and you're never quite trusting other sources. I notice this, for example, endless times people might quote something. For example, I just working on a dissertation in Spain, and the person has quoted all kinds of major writers. This is a dissertation dealing with laughter, the history of laughter. And of course, she refers to Bergson, for example, Henri Bergson, and has a year published 2009, which is completely wrong. Bergson wrote his major treatise on laughter and comic in 1911. That gives me the very different context. So it's a small little point, but that's honesty. You're not content with what the others simply have told you. There are endless mistakes out there. So we need to verify. Let's say I go into Wikipedia, for example, or online, and I find a reference. Then that is all fine and interesting, but then I verify. Then I always check then the bibliographies, I check the catalogs, and notice even there are a lot of mistakes or gaps. So I have to verify further. Yeah, so that is the hard thing to do, but it's a very important thing to do. Otherwise, our research cannot be trusted. And falsification is basically the same thing. You just try to eliminate wrong information so that afterwards we can carry out our critical analysis, that we are rational in our arguments, that we develop our arguments or thoughts in a logical manner, and then present that in a convincing manner. After all, our research needs to be presentable. It needs to be understandable. And if it's confusing, contradictory, and written in a bad language, then no one wants or can read it. So, in a very simple terms, what I always observe and what I always ask also for my students and my colleagues, there needs to be a good title for your paper. You need to have a very clear thesis, which is the hardest thing to do in all of research, the thesis. And many times I find myself at the end of my paper that I'm writing in the need to go back to my own thesis statement and to rewrite it completely, because in the development of my arguments, I suddenly moved into a very different direction. So, but the thesis is ultimately the most important statement you can really, or one of the most important statements. The thesis also in terms of the computer, that's what is posted online. So when people search for your material, want to read about what you have found out, they always and increasingly need a very quick thesis so that they know this study is relevant for me, that study is not relevant. And also in light of publishing, we always, in all the journals nowadays, we need an abstract. In some journals, they have an abstract in several languages, in French, German, and English, or maybe Arabic. Let's say, look, I don't read Arabic. And I know maybe, Asma, you have written a really wonderful paper, but in Arabic. And I cannot get it translated so quickly. So your abstract will tell me right away in English, okay, that is important. Or no, I don't need this. Yeah, so it's a very important component. And then we also need for search tools the keywords. Okay, very important. In my earlier books, I did not have that but now I always demand that because also we are changing and we're living in a world where the computer has a much bigger role, and so everyone needs these key elements. So how do you develop then your paper, your article, your book, whatever it might be, your chapter in a book? You have to have first an introduction, which in a way elaborates more the thesis. You then turn to your main arguments, where you place or present the relevant evidence. Really, that sounds like a scientist. You need to present evidence. And the evidence in our case is not data. Oh, maybe in linguistics you often have, or education, you have often data. I don't. But our evidence, our data, those are the texts. And you cannot make a wild claim, or let's say regarding any kind of Arabic philosopher or French author, if you don't have the text right in front of you. And you need to quote, of course, from the most reliable source. Very important. I will come to that, hopefully, if I don't forget. But I will have to talk about the critical edition. Now, we need to know on what basis I even make my claims. And why? Because there are countless publishers today, or online publishers or whatever, and they just publish very quickly without checking anything, all kinds of materials, and then you quote it from there, and a critical reader will then quickly find out you have not quoted the right text. It is all wrong. Okay, so we'll talk about the critical edition a little bit later. And then, of course, you need to have a conclusion and a bibliography or an apparatus. I think all these things are very well known. I mean, I'm not really saying anything new to you. You're all very familiar with that, but maybe just to have it in writing here might be useful for future reference. So quickly, an overview of what types of publications there are. There are, on the first of all, the monographs. A monograph is a single authored study, let's say a dissertation translated into a book, at least 200, 300 pages or so. Then we do have edited volumes, and as you are very familiar with those, you have contributed several times. Thank you so much. And there you have then an editor or two editors who compile a number of studies, and the editors are then responsible for observing that there is a shared theme. So I faced that recently. Several people submitted an abstract for a volume for next year, and I had to say, oh, thank you. It sounds very interesting, but it has nothing to do with the topic. Yeah. So you don't want to have a mishmash of different studies. Those, however, appear a number of times, and I will refer to that in a moment, but probably in our field, the most important is an article in a journal. There's a big difference between an article in an edited volume and an article in a journal. The editor of a volume is mostly, and I see myself in this role, a friendly editor who tries very hard, he or she, to help you getting your piece into good shape. The article is in a journal is a different beast, because you normally, at least in good journals, have to expose yourself to rather severe, sometimes severe criticism, so or strong or extensive criticism. So in my case of the journal Humanities, it is an online journal, but we have an extensive reviewing process. So sometimes 4, sometimes 6 reviewers who do not know you, who just simply take your piece as is and evaluate it in terms of its theoretical grounding, the methodology, the relevant research, and the logical development of the article. So I have a couple of examples in a moment, but that's the difference. An article in a journal, an article in an edited volume. I'm not saying that an edited volume has less quality or less respect, but the process through which an article is then entered into an edited volume is different than in the case of a journal. Increasingly, we all know, right? Our journals or even books are online. So, for example, in my case, De Gruyter, all publications are now online and many times free of charge. So free access, online access. But I really do not care about the medium. Whatever medium is used, print or online, it doesn't really matter. What matters is whether the research criteria are of relevance for that journal. Okay, so I'm afraid that in the near future we will have only online publications, and I think in terms of articles, that is probably not the worst, but in terms of a whole monograph, I find this extremely difficult. And even today, when you want then to download a whole book that might go relatively fast, let's say 2 minutes, but when you then scroll through a book and you have to take about half a minute per page, that is not possible. So even the latest technology we have available does not make the reading of a monograph or any kind of volume online an easy matter. And if I have to search quickly, let's say from a footnote to the bibliography, which is maybe 200 pages away, that might take forever, 10, 15 minutes. And by that time, I've lost the page where the footnote was. So I personally, I'm rather critical and do not like those edited or ones or monographs in PDF format. However, right now, as the editor of Medievistic, I find myself in the unfortunate situation that European publishers flatly refuse to send any books to the United States because it costs too much due to the tariffs imposed by our federal government. That's a little bit tragic, and you might notice I have a lot of negative things to say about the situation right now here, but there are a lot of reasons to be concerned. Anyway, that's not my topic today. We also have that very useful entries in lexica and encyclopedias, and these are very useful quick references, but they do not have the same status as an article. They are very important, they're very time consuming to create, but we cannot necessarily rely on them unless you have a topic which is not covered otherwise. So, for example, the what is it called? The Encyclopedia of Islam. That's often covers topics that are not covered anywhere else. So it depends on the material, but you know it's a different format and different medium. And then two very dangerous things: self-published books. Some people are not successful for whatever reason. Maybe the manuscript is not good enough, or they don't have the money, or they're in a very difficult situation, and so they self-publish their books. Those are normally not even considered in research. That could be a sad situation because it might be a good book, but no self-respecting researcher would cite, if avoidable, a self-published book. And then, of course, we do have tons of so-called blogs online. They are sometimes informative, sometimes funny, but we cannot rely on them as resources for our research. So, a few comments: monographs, that we all know what this is. Now, right now, it's a comprehensive study of one topic. The monograph is fully engaged with the relevant research. So to write a monograph is a tough job. I mean, everyone knows that, because the first thing is you really need to know the entire background, all scholarship, which sometimes can go back to the 19th and even the 18th centuries at times. So that takes a lot of effort by the author, maybe a doctoral student. But it really offers, this book, this monograph, ultimately offers an extensive exploration of the topic, and it needs to be published by a reputable publisher. And of course, there are many predatory publishers. There are many publishers that just want get a quick manuscript and then publish it without any care. In other words, if there's no good copy editor, that means a person working for the publisher who reads that every word you have written. If that's not present, then you can expect the book to be a rather poor shape. Of course, you might say, but now we have AI and we have Grammarly and all kinds of softwares that can help you. But ultimately, if you use AI, well, that's another huge topic, but in my field, then this constitutes plagiarism. And if you're found out, then you lose all reputation and are no longer accepted in the world of research. Increasingly, journals require you at the end of your journal article to state whether you have consulted AI, whether you have been assisted by AI, because everyone is really deeply worried about that whole development. Where is it your own work? Where is it machine produced? And does a machine produced text have any value? That is a huge topic, but let's move on. And I just simply have the other word, it's called trade books. Anyway, I don't want to go into that too much. Articles in peer-reviewed journals, they represent the highest level of scholarship because of the review. So you really have that many people, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, who are really experts in their field and might strongly disagree with you because they know the older or better or more recent or latest research and you might not be aware of. I think good reviewers are encouraging. Good reviewers point out what is missing, help the author to expand, to deepen, and to base the article on more relevant material. My own experience is they can easily also be very biased because that's not always a guarantee. Yeah, so I have experience from my very first article I ever published or wanted to publish, extreme case of envy. And so somebody rejected my article, and my advisors at that time told me, he wanted to write this paper, send it to that journal. And I did send it to another journal, and they immediately accepted it because it was so well researched, and they were very happy about it. And it has remained the only article ever written on this topic, and so it has proven to be absolutely seminal. I'm very proud of that. But the reviewer didn't like it. So, okay, there are also, of course, many subjective factors. And those subjective factors can come in also, let's say, in science fields or in medical fields. You know, our federal government, for example, is trying right now to stop COVID-19 vaccines because they claim it's not well researched. In my opinion, that is just perverse and is completely wrong and utterly non-research based. It's pure religion and ideology. Anyway, that pertains to articles and the review. And I say it really takes a lot of patience and endurance. You might be surprised, but many of my articles were first rejected because I had not quite done my homework, or I was barking at the wrong tree, or things did not quite work out. And that is very normal. So rejection is a very normal thing. Actually, it's something very healthy, because either you do have the endurance and patience, and then you have the energy and strength to go through this painful and long process because you're really passionate about your research, or you just drop it and abandon that. Then you just don't have really the endurance to fight back. I mean, this is a harsh word, to fight back, but I mean thereby to argue back. How many times did I get reviews and I had to say, okay, thank you very much. This point is valid. That point also helps me. Yes, indeed, I did not look into this study. Thank you very much. But I disagree with you in this area or that area. And so in a good case, the editor of the journal or the reviewers accept that my own comments, and then it was kind of a shared result because the reviewers pushed me harder to write a really good research paper. So articles in peer-reviewed journals can be very daunting. So you need to have the strength to accept criticism. And again, in a good case, and I hope that I impersonate that, in a good case, criticism should be constructive. It should not be biased. It should not be ideological. It should not be religious. It should be scholarly. It should be based on verification and falsification. But in the process, and that's why I said it at the very beginning, research is such, at least in my perspective, such a wonderful thing. It really transforms me, makes me happy, makes me proud, makes me sad as well when it's rejected. But I have the energy and I push further until I get my piece published. So my research constantly allows me to increase my own self-awareness and to strengthen my own personality, because I have my opinion. And if I can base my opinion on solid research, then I will not let any reviewer make me give up. So again, it's once it's published, you can share it, and then you will suddenly find that lots of other readers, other researchers will respond to you either with compliments or with further criticism, and then you engage with them. So, a couple of examples where I have tried myself, have published sometimes I was rejected, but just in my case, I have never published in PMLA, that's a journal for the Modern Language Association, and I've never managed to publish in Speculum, that's the journal for the Medieval Academy of America, and I think because I don't have enough patience. I'm a little bit impatient, and so I do not like to wait for a couple of years to publish something. I want things to be published. I have published in Philological Quarterly. Took me quite a while until they accepted it, but I was very proud of it. Arcadia is a comparative journal. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. Unterrichtspraxis is a pedagogical journal for Germanist scholars. Same thing then as German Quarterly, that is more for literary cultural studies. Both are really very restrictive, and maybe the acceptance rate, maybe 30%. So all these journals look at their rejection rate, and the higher the rejection rate is, the higher their alleged scholarly standing. I disagree with that a little bit, but one can discuss that. In my own case, humanities is very, very open, but we have an extensive reviewing process. And sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 rounds. Then ultimately, hopefully, then this makes it possible. But there are hundreds or thousands of other journals I could comment on, but just simply here an example or selection of cases. The review process should really start with yourself. I mean, there's no point submitting any kind of research if you have not checked your own piece very thoroughly. I have a very simple advice how to do this review for yourself. And one way would be to use a completely different font setting or a different font size. That means your eyes are suddenly confronting a text you have not seen before. That means you are fresh, and suddenly many of your own mistakes pop out, and you are then able to improve your paper right away. So that's your own review process. And I think it's always extremely useful before you submit anywhere and irritate the editor or irritate the reviewer, have friends and colleagues look it over. So this is something I try myself when I publish a monograph, but it's of course very difficult. How can I find people in my circle of friends or colleagues who have all that time to read my piece? So, but it's something that can really be extremely useful, because your friends or your colleagues might not know anything specifically about your research topic. So your thesis statement, your introduction must make it clear quickly what this paper is all about. Yeah, so friends who are tabula rasa can be really good reviewers for you. And then, of course, you have a lot of professional reviewers. Sometimes they're commercials, so they can cost you quite a lot of money. And I'm not sure whether they're really helpful. I've never consulted any professional reviewers, but I know they exist. Then next stage is, of course, the editorial staff. So I, as the editor of the Humanities, am very often actually asked by the editorial staff to check whether a submission is even acceptable for us or not. So many times I discover a submission really falls into the area of pure philosophy or music history or sociology or something like that. And so I can tell them very quickly, yes, that's an interesting paper, move it into through the pipeline of reviewers, or no, this is really wrong, that's not for us. So the editorial staff is also, when it's a good staff, and we have a fairly large staff, can really help you in a very early stage. And then once everything is done, so once your paper has been reviewed, has been found to be acceptable, then there's still yet another stage, and that's once it is published, no, prior to being published, then you get the galley, and the editor or the colleague who is working with your paper is asking you then to check one more time. Maybe ask me, you might remember, after so many times we have checked and checked and checked, and then find the galley is ready. And in a good case, and I have very good case, namely with Dick Reuter, but also Peter Lang, I get sometimes up to 4 stages of galleys. So 4 times we're checking all the mistakes and try to eliminate. In the first round, there might be maybe 500 errors in a volume of 600-700 pages. And the second round, then maybe only 110, 20. And then the third one, maybe only 40. And then hopefully in the last fourth galley, then maybe only 10 or so. And then they all can be eliminated. And then it goes into publication. And in a way, let's not forget the readers of your stuff. So you will notice whether you're on the right track or not, whether you are getting readers. I'm very happy to upload my own papers as soon as they're published to Academia EDU. So far that is free, although I heard there are some changes coming, but I know that people all over the world, thousands of people have consulted my articles because I get the data from Academia EDU, and there's also ResearchGate, and there are other sites where you can publish your paper, at least in the PDF version, if you are allowed to do so. Please remember, there can be legal implications, and certain publishers say, oh, you have to wait a whole year before you're allowed to put it online. But the readers are really ultimately the final judges, because when they find your piece valuable, then you know you have done a good job. So, edited volumes, that also includes sometimes a Festschrift. That is a German word, and it's a technical word we use in all bibliographical studies. It is a volume edited by someone in honor of a senior person, a person that deserves some honor. Maybe when somebody gets to 70 or 80, then I got my first Festschrift when I was 60 years of old age, and it should be a secret, but it's not a secret. I know the next volume, my series, will be my next Festschrift. So I will have the great honor of having 2 Festschriften. That's a Festschrift is a little bit mixed bag. One has to be careful, because in most cases, as far as I know, a Festschrift compiles all kinds of stuff. And so, students, colleagues, friends submit something, whatever they just happen to have in their drawer. And so in many cases, then such a Festschrift is not really well organized by a shared theme. But sometimes a good editor makes sure that only material that addresses the same topic enters then the Festschrift. So again, that's a very amorphous situation. You have to be careful. As a young scholar, I mean, it's an honor if you are invited to contribute to a Festschrift, but for someone who really wants to grow and get tenure, or get a firm academic post, then a Festschrift is not necessarily the best forum for you, because everyone knows in the field of research, that is done quickly. No one has really reviewed it so thoroughly. They just wanted to put it together quickly so that the honoree can get the Festschrift. So I just would say, let's be a little bit careful with the Festschrift. So I talked already good or bad editors. You have good or bad copy editors with the publishers. So in other words, what I think is extremely important when you want to submit a paper or a manuscript, try to figure out, first of all, does the editor have, or the publisher, do they have a good copy editor? Will they take care of your work? Will they try to transform your rough draft into something that is publishable? Or are they very restrictive and maybe very elitist? And I think good research should be much more democratic. So there is no criteria that ever says that an undergraduate student would not be a good researcher. Absolutely. Somebody who writes his first paper and is absolutely brilliant, by all means, publish it. So age and experience should not be the decisive criteria, but rather what is the quality of the paper. So it depends, hence, on the journal, on the publisher, where they will take care of your piece or where they will reject it right away. And that, of course, leads then very quickly to the reputation of the publisher. So I'm very happy that De Gruyter takes all my books, and they're very happy about that as well. They sell these books very well. And so that is a publisher of highest reputation, just like Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, University of Chicago Press, and many others. But we have to be careful. You don't want to waste your very valuable research when you publish with someone who has no marketing skills, no experience of making your book known to others, and it gets simply lost. Or even worse, you publish with a publisher that doesn't have the reputation, and then you're coming up for promotion or tenure, as we would say, and they say, wait a minute, these articles, they all appeared in these shady, with the shady publishers. That is not the quality. We cannot trust that young person. Yeah, so it is really important to keep that in mind. You need to have a good publisher. So now, how to do research? Now comes to the core issue, right? So, and I have said already a lot of different things, but I repeat myself, but that should not hurt too much because we need to have a good thesis. That's always the alpha and omega of everything. There needs to be a clear argument, clearly investigated, and how can you say something new? I see it too many times that people then, like online paper, they just summarize what we know already, or which has already been discovered or discussed 100 or 200 years ago. That's not what should be published. So a thesis always has at least a tiny element of novelty. Okay, you don't have to revolutionize the world. No, not at all. We're always building on the shoulder of others, of predecessors. But there needs to be always, that needs to be absolutely guaranteed. There needs to be something really new. So, and that is, of course, the hardest. How do you figure out that is really new? I just had that experience recently. Let me just take a sip of water. So I was asked to write a very short piece to summarize the current research on cultural history in the medieval context. So I was very familiar with the relevant research, but then I was almost done with my research and with the article. They only wanted 5 pages or so, when I started to dig a little bit more deeply and discovered, I knew it already somehow, but I had not really paid attention, that much of the really relevant research had been published in the late 19th century. And some of these authors were so much closer to the sources and had so much broader perspective that has not been matched by modern research, or modern research has simply copied without ever saying anything new, maybe with more modern words, maybe with more references to more recent publications. But in essence, these scholars, these were books about medieval criminals, medieval prostitution, medieval jokesters, entertainment, medieval households, all kinds of general studies. And I was amazed when I opened those books how much really good information was hidden in them. So I'm not saying we should rely completely on those old studies, but by the same token, let's not ignore them either. So it takes sometimes, well, always takes time to do the relevant research. That means you really need to know where to find relevant studies. And that can be very time consuming when it is a new topic. For me, it normally goes fairly quickly because I build on what I've studied and expand. And then every time I do a new research, I know already what I have done before, what others have done, so I can nicely build. I can scaffold. People always ask me, how can you publish so much? And they forget that I'm just building a scaffold. And then have one level, another level, another level, and I can easily, when I'm on the 10th floor, I can shout down to my co-workers, quote unquote, on the first floor. Get me some boards or get me some extra mortar, and then they ship it up to me, and I can then quickly build my own research. So it has to be, however, cutting edge research. And let me give you a dramatic example, which I always share with my students. Let's say you are in the medical field and you investigate blood and how you can use blood for all kinds of tests. And all you know is what they've done 50 years ago. And you know nothing about the latest research pertaining to blood and the latest computer investigation or examination and so forth with blood. Then you're far behind the curve. And no one wants to publish it then, right? So our research has to be cutting edge. Even if it's just a sliver of cutting edge, it has to be something new. Otherwise, you're just a parrot and you repeat what others have said. And now I come into very specific ways of how to do research. And there are many, many other bibliographies. I'm listing here those that I find most useful in my field. So I am a medievalist, early modernist. I work with literary texts, historical texts, with artworks. And so I rely primarily on the, in English, on Modern Language Association that is easily available for me. I go to ITER, which is Latin for the way or the walk, and that's an excellent bibliography. IMB is International Medieval Bibliography, and something that is totally open to anyone, Regesta Imperii. That's Latin, but it is a wonderful research tool for anyone in the entire range of social and humanities studies. You find also maybe JSTOR and many other sources. In other words, your research has to be systematic. And that's sometimes hard. And what I'm showing you here does not give you access to the material. It gives you the information, what research has been published on a topic. Then comes the next stage, and you need to find the material. But I have other ways of doing that. JSTOR, for example, is a wonderful website, and MRA as well. They often have, if it's available, the PDF, so you can simply download it. But in many other cases, what I'm doing does not give you the direct material. It gives you the information, sort of gives you the key to open the door, but you still have to walk through the door yourself. Then, the very finest and the most comprehensive bibliography is what we call WorldCat. You might not have access to it in Egypt, for example. I'm not quite sure, but indirectly you do, and I will show you. But WorldCat is based on the catalog of the Library of Congress, and it covers all major libraries in the United States and Canada. So they have by now about 55, maybe 60 million references. Mostly books, edited volumes, monographs, Festschriften, but books. The problem with WorldCat, and I'll show you an example, is that they simply have too much. So you do a certain search and they throw at you a vast amount of references. Maybe 80% might be completely useful. So you have to plow through all that material and it might not be really useful for you. But here's an example how to do this. This is also called First Search, and I have direct access to it through my University of Arizona library system. So you can see there are lots of different ways how you can search. Keywords. You can search by title. You can search by author. Then you can search by year. You can search by language. So let's say you have a specific topic and you want to know whether that topic has been covered by also by Chinese, Indian, Russian, whatever other scholars. So WordCat allows you to specify your search. Let me give you one example. I'm very interested in the history of reception, and I often want to know whether a certain work, primary work, has been or was translated at its own time, later, or today in a certain language. So if I want to know, let's say, I use maybe Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, an English romance from about 1381. And I want to know whether it also exists in a Hungarian translation, or Japanese, or Korean. That could be very important because it would tell me a lot about the popularity of a medieval text today. So WorldCat allows me to do that. Otherwise, almost impossible. If you have more questions about the site, and I've already talked for about an hour, I can go into that. But WordCat could be limited to those who have access it through their library. In many cases, that might not be the case. So then I go to KVC, or Karlsruhe Virtuelle Katalog. That's in English and German. It's done in Germany, in Karlsruhe. That is a really fantastic search tool. It is free, open to everyone in the world. It has a global scope. It's just an image here of the palace where the university is housed. And I normally use only the libraries in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, but sometimes I go to France and Italy or England. So here is the example. Similar, I have it now in German, but keywords, title, person, or corporation, or keyword once again. And then you have many different options. And again, that's all open and free for you, okay? So you just simply search online under KVK, and then you find it. And then you can specify where you want to search. Let's say what I see here, I know there's a certain book, and I'm topic maybe that is of great interest, particularly for Austrian scholars. So I know that from probably at least the relevant studies were done by Australians, so probably the relevant research is in the Australian National Library. NB stands for National Bibliothek, not National Library. So Nationalbibliothek. Anyway, so you can check that, and you get directly access to Australia. Or you can go to Denmark or Finland or Moscow. There's one I will mention soon afterwards, which you all know, but I don't have access to that. But you see on the right side, the right column, there's even options Amazon, antiquarian book sellers, bookloader, and so forth. So, that's basically what I have searched here. And I refer also to the very interesting HarTrust Library, Harvard University. Many times when I need a book published maybe in the 17th century or 18th century, and my library doesn't have it, or no lending library has a copy, so I am then sent to HarTrust Library, and they often have then the PDF. So there is a massive effort underway to make these older books available. There's a digitization process all over the world. So let me also reveal some simple tricks that I use. They are not necessarily scholarly, but they're useful tricks. So don't quote me here, but they're good tricks. I often look at Wikipedia. I don't trust Wikipedia. No one should. But Wikipedia is much, much better than the very new one, Grokipedia, which was launched by Elon Musk just two days ago. But Wikipedia is getting better. Every day is getting better. The articles that you can consult increasingly have really good references, latest research. Not really trustworthy. You have to double check. You have to verify and falsify. I discover endless mistakes there, but they give you a hint, clue. They give you a reference. So what I then do, for example, I have a long list of relevant titles in Wikipedia. Then I copy those title or the author. Then I go to WorldCat or Karlsruhe and verify that. And then I discover, it is completely different, but different date and more authors, or there's a book series and there's a volume number. And there are two publishers or whatever. And then I have, through this verification process, really the best access to latest research. So Wikipedia, I don't promote it. I don't publish there, but I look into it from time to time when I'm really stranded, when I just don't know anymore, or no other scholar has given me clear evidence. And it's a fast and easy way. It's not reliable. It's not completely trustworthy, but it's a useful tool. And if you use it that way, it is not bad. I have also noticed a very interesting thing. The various national Wikipedia pages are different. So let's say I search a topic that is very typical of German scholarship, then I go wikipedia.de. And they have guaranteed a very different range of references and much more information. If it's French, then I go to wikipedia.fr, and suddenly I find a very different set of information. So that's quite interesting, okay? And each country has its own emphasis. So playing with that, then of course everyone knows a simple Google search can come up with lots of information. That is not bad, but you always have to verify and falsify. But at least you get information. Then I have some other references I just list here. They're not that Z, that is a Russian, I believe it's a Russian web page, not quite legal. Careful, but from time to time I found material that I could download and have then text available for my classes, which I couldn't find anywhere else. But then I forget, that is just an example. Skip this, and you all know this. All right, the Egyptian Knowledge Bank, but I do not have access to it. I cannot. I've tried numerous times, but I'm not Egyptian, and I don't have an Egyptian IP address, so the system does not let me in. Whatever, I can register, but it never happens. But I hear that it offers you at least a wonderful access to primary sources. I hear so. You tell me how you have used it and what it's all about, but I cannot consult it. But anyway, it says one of the largest databases in the world. Great. So, a very pragmatic final comment here about this. Can you read and digest it all? And the answer simply is no. No one can read everything. No one can read 200 books or 4,000 articles when you want to write yours. So what you need to do in this case is always digest, synthesize, look for maybe literary history where they have digested already a lot of material. We cannot be all inclusive. And here, an admission, I say it openly, I cannot consult studies, maybe on my topic, but written in Chinese or Arabic or Russian. I have my limitations. I can read French, Spanish, Italian, Latin, German, English, fine, but I cannot read all the languages. There are 7,000 languages in the world. So how do I know for sure that no Japanese scholar has not already written what I'm trying to argue about? I don't know. I can try my best, right? But there is a limitation to all of us. So all what you need to do is, in your own work, you need to demonstrate that you have done your homework to the best of your abilities. And if there's more, then the reviewers can point out more. But at least you need to do your homework first. And I call this carving out your own niche before you begin writing. So you need to be really clearly aware what scholarship has done already and where you can really find your tiny little nook where you can then do your own research. Again, let's not be too overly ambitious. We cannot revolutionize. We are not Nobel Prize winners of literature or history or whatever. No, I'm not, at least. Maybe you are. I'm not. But I'm trying to find a tiny little sliver of novelty, and that's good enough. So that means in this verification, falsification process, make sure that you alert your readers to previous scholars, but then maybe point out that you're moving beyond their scope, their understanding. You have different concepts. You use different theories than they do. Maybe you have a different methodology, or maybe you have different access to archive than they do. Or that you use different materials, or that you are much more, let's say, comparative. Like Dora, you are working really more comparatively, right? And that's suddenly that reaches new shores. Very nice.
Thank you.
Then, oh yeah, just a simple example. Let's say you want to write a paper on Shakespeare. For you. I mean, how can you write a new paper on Shakespeare? How is that even possible? I wouldn't dare to do that. Well, if you come with a very new theory or a different approach, and you can be sure that no one else has ever written about that, go ahead, try it. But I would I would shy away from writing about Shakespeare. Of course, there are thousands of Shakespeare scholars, and they publish really wonderful work, but it's very hard. They have to read a lot before they can really set up their own theory or thesis. And I come here to the crucial notion: there has to be autopsy. Autopsy means that you really consult the sources yourself. I mentioned that I'm just one of the outside evaluator of a Spanish dissertation, and I will have to say to the author of this dissertation, she needs to use much more autopsy to autopsy, the text. Don't rely on secondary sources. You really need to look at it. Let's say you would write on Nietzsche or Sigmund Freud, to use big names, and you discuss their thinking not by reading their text, but looking at what other people have said about them. That's not reliable. I've seen it too many times when I have to reject a paper because I have to say, you're writing about Nietzsche and you don't even know German. You're just consulting English translations. It's like me writing about Arabic philosopher and I don't know any Arabic. That's not right. At least I need to make an attempt to autopsy. Okay, it's a very crucial point in everything we do. And hence, your research must be reliable and trustworthy. Never trust anyone. No, anyone, really. Always question yourself. It is your work. You do the research. Consult with them, ask them for their opinion, read what they have to say, but do not trust them 100%. I find myself always in the situation that I make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but I rather make mistakes because I misread the source than because I consulted another or I relied on another person's opinion. So double check or autopsy. That's just an example about virology, but I just move on. And I just repeat myself: veracity and veracity and objectivity. That's what research is all about. It needs to be reliable, and so that in 10 years, 20 years, somebody can refer to your study and say, this was foundational in this little area. That's the goal. And so, of course, as I mentioned before, there are huge hurdles, linguistic hurdles. I don't read Russian, for example, or Kazakh or Ukrainian. I don't. I don't read Finnish. There are endless examples. So I can only try to read out and find out what research might have been published in those other languages. But I know this is like walking on thin ice. I don't know. This is always a little bit a risk. But okay, now I want also to talk briefly about AI, but I think in light of the time I've already used, I just leave it out there and alert us all. Maybe we can discuss that AI is dangerous. And it's dangerous for us because it tends to seduce us, believing that what the computer has written for you is good enough. But it's never good enough. You need to do your own work. But we can come back to that a little bit later. So the danger is also intellectual property. It's hard to detect AI-produced texts. Well, only to some extent. I have had a bit of experience with AI-produced papers by my students. And actually, I've published recently a whole article about the problems with AI in our field. That is available. It's online. You can find that. So I just move on in this. But all these things you can, and I say here simply that a shortcut can turn to a very long detour. So you might think, okay, I can do this very quickly and I get printed out, maybe 2 pages by AI. But if it's detected, then you run into huge problems, and that's so time consuming to remedy that situation. So altogether, research is a thorny path, but the goal, and I really mean that, the goal is divine. If you can do some research, right, and you find out something others have not seen yet, you discover new angles or new texts or something, then that is a divine reward. And that's why I'm doing research, and that's why I hope all do research or do anyway your research. So, and you want to publish, so think very hard first where you might want to publish. So, you could easily be rejected because the journal has a different emphasis or pursues a different methodology, and your work does not fit into it. So you can make things much easier when you do not bark at the wrong tree. So think always of your potential audience, and then comes a very boring aspect, but every journal has different formal criteria. And this is a long-winded approach. Every time I publish, I have to rewrite and have to not rewrite, reformat my paper because they need that. Okay, so content and form need to harmonize. So it needs to be clean, grammatically correct, good English or good German or good Arabic, whatever it might be. Ask help from colleagues and friends. Good, any help you can get. Read papers backwards. Sometimes it's useful. Turn to the very last page and read backwards. You see your whole paper in very different light. I've mentioned that already. or I mentioned that already, and I think I want to close here and with these few words. True research is also ethics based. So if you want to be a good researcher, you must pursue transparency, honesty, and commitment. Politics and research do not mix, but politics often intervene in research, as I've mentioned before. So we need to make sure that we stay safe on our own grounds, research, but it's ethics based so that no one can accuse you of anything. So I think I skip all this. We have this maybe for later. And I think, yeah, this is a lot of stuff. And yeah, an example. And I want us to end here. And thank you all for this wonderful opportunity. I mean, this was a great opportunity for me. It was really fun. I mean, I love to do research. And now you allowed me to talk about all the methods and the tools that I utilize. That is really a pleasure. So I really appreciate your interest, and you would reward me if you ask me some questions. So thank you so much, Dr. Gada. I appreciate that opportunity, and I hope it was useful for all of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have had 93 people. Yeah, quite nice. Thank you. Yeah, ask me.
I have a question, Professor. Can we use AI without being accused of being plagiarize something from it? Is it a way to use it? Because sooner or later, yeah, you started to use the AI already, especially in critical thinking and convincing the structure.
Yeah.
It really helps. But again, is there a legal way to use it to be safe?
Well, it is evolving, and I do not have a finite answer. No one does, because AI is changing radically a lot of different things. First of all, I think it depends on what type of research you do. I hear that many researchers in law, in medicine, engineering, architecture, journalism, whatever, can really utilize AI to create their data. I know that in pedagogy, for example, a lot of people welcome AI because it can ease the mechanical work itself. But it gets immediately dangerous if you rely on Chat GPT or AI or whatever it might be. There are lots of sources to write what you want to write. In other words, if it takes over your own thinking and your own writing, and the writing reflects your thinking, then you get into deep trouble, I would say. That's dangerous. Particularly because you're no longer able to see what is your own, what was machine produced. That's the reason why we quote everything. You know, it's so easy to quote and copy from Wikipedia, and you just put into your text and you forget. And then any simple search tool can immediately identify. And the consequences can, at this point, can be so deadly for you. Sure, you are big in my screen, so thank you.
Oh, really? I just opened the camera. I just turned on the
Okay,
camera.
so I thought you had a question.
You know, I also use AI, but I have a I say that AI is like the genie in Aladdin's lamp. You can
Yeah.
just go and send the
Mm.
genie to find you stuff, but
Yeah.
it won't really synthesize things for you in an
Mm.
analytical way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know, but like,
yeah, I don't know either. It's a very critical thing. It's difficult to decide. I think, however, as long as you know what you're doing and that you give really specific instructions. Let's
I
say,
give specific
well,
what was written on this, and then it would give me, and then I sort of have like maybe I can have a 2 hour conversation with AI, looking
okay,
for stuff. It would give me ideas, but it won't write the paper for you.
yeah. Well,
It
then you,
won't do the argument for you, but it
yeah.
can help you find some sources for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing like consulting Wikipedia.
And Google Scholar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
So the whole thing is evolving, and no one really knows what the future will hold. Uh, but you can be safe by simply saying my own thinking. That's what I have to do. I use AI as a tool, but then I leave it aside and I do my own work.
But I think it's all right to use Grammarly.
Yeah,
Because I'm always afraid of using Grammarly because the sentences might, you know,
yeah,
I'm just skeptical.
yeah. Uh, and when I write or my text maybe in Microsoft, simple Microsoft Word, it shows me all the time where mistakes are.
Yeah, yeah.
And many times English grammar is not absolute 100% easy for me. So many times, and I see it with many of my colleagues, English professors, and they also make mistakes, have wrong commas or an adverb where there should be just an adjective. So I find it very. So, yeah, I mean, this is evolving. That's all I can say. It's evolving, and as long as we are critical and careful and not allowing the AI to take over what we do, then we are
Hmm.
safe so far. We don't know
Yeah,
what the future will hold.
yeah.
Asmi, did you want to comment on it?
Yes, yes. Grammarly is not acceptable here in Egyptian university, especially in promotion. So if
Uh-huh.
you use the Grammarly, your paper might be rejected because of
Uh-huh.
plagiarism. A kind of AI again.
Yeah. Well, particularly if you are graded on the English and then you got all that help. But this is then really a tricky issue because you write your paper and you give that paper to a colleague who then reads the paper and corrects all kinds of stuff. Is that not cheating? No, it's not.
Mm,
But at the same
yes.
time, they give you help.
Yeah. There
This,
is also a tool called Pro Writing Aid. I don't know if you know it. It would fix sentence structure,
yeah.
but I use, but it's like using Grammarly. Like you can use these things to fix your sentences, make them more readable. But
Mhm.
I know that some journals don't accept that, and you will
Mhm.
need to use it as one of your sources.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well,
we have a question here in the chat by
yeah, but you read it.
Shahinda. Shahinda, would you like to read it for us?
I see it now. Okay.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for this lovely session. I really liked it. And thank you for talking about all of these things about reductions. This is very motivational, to be honest. And just like I have a question regarding the words or the papers that we can use, like is there a specific time during which we cannot use any resources in scientific research? Like my supervisor told me not to use anything which is older than 2015. And sometimes I find some papers like from 1990 or something like that, and they're really good,
Mm,
but at the same time, I cannot use them. So is there a specific rule related to that?
No, there is no absolute firm rule. So I take a pragmatic approach. I mean, in your own research, you need to demonstrate that you know that you're aware of the current discourse. And you absolutely need to refer to the major sources. And then my pragmatic approach is once you have plowed through the relevant studies, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
and you're pursuing a certain topic, then and you discover that somebody from 1899 maybe has already written a marvelous article that really covers everything that is, or provides him with really valuable information, there's nothing that stops you from citing. And let's say, let's use philosophy, okay? So Friedrich Nietzsche died 1900, and you want to engage with his thinking, with some of his ideas, then you really need to cite him, not as the author of a research paper, but as a philosopher or as a poet. Then suddenly you are in 1890, 1888, or something like that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so
I think,
yeah.
let me say one more thing. As long as you're transparent, and you might say, to introduce that old source, although it might come as a surprise, but in my research, I discovered that author John F. Smith, whatever, has already discussed this and that. So in my short little article on cultural anthropology, no, cultural studies, I refer to one author, Bumke, who has written a marvelous book in 1986 about courtly culture, and which I have liked a lot. But today I would say, excuse me, you really copied much of your material from the 19th century. And it's not quite honest.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah, I got the point now. So,
yeah.
You
okay.
know,
Yeah.
mm,
I
you
just
know,
have another question, if you allow me.
Please,
Yeah.
go
yeah,
ahead.
Okay. The other question is about just like the results. If I'm conducting my master's and so on, so has it ever happened to you that you wrote a hypothesis and conducted your own research, and then you found out like the results or were the opposite to what you proposed? And in such a case, what should I do? Should I start over from the beginning or publish the work with the results that were found, which will
No,
be, yeah.
no, but I think I have addressed that already, but let me repeat. I always tell my students that the thesis is the most important part of the entire paper, and the conclusion should be directly linked to the thesis. But when in your conclusion you find out that your thesis was really wrong, then great. And then you go back and you either rewrite the thesis, or in your conclusion, you could use very simple wording. You could say, although I have tried to argue, blah, 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 the evidence itself confirms actually the very opposite because blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
That would be a wonderful sign of your own or indication of your own critical thinking, your thought processes, and that you grew in your own research. I like
Yeah.
that. I mean, A, that's brave. B, it's really very rational. And C, it is really critical. You're critical of yourself. That is wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's very hard to do, but yeah, it's very brave as you mentioned. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you
Well,
so much. Yeah.
but you can also, I mean, to avoid that, you should really think through your whole paper. You should have a general idea what you want to argue, and only then you do write it. Otherwise, well, you jump into the cold water, and that's the reason why then you have to rewrite your thesis statement.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it helps. Okay, very good. Yes, thank you. Okay, who else? Asma, you want to?
Yes, I want to tell you something, which is writing a thesis is the most difficult part for me because I keep revising its
Yeah,
perspective throughout the whole paper
yeah,
until the final page. Then I fix my thesis statement
yeah.
actually.
But I think a good editor can really do wonders. Then I try to aspire for that to give you the right pointers. And, you know, I notice in many cases, then editors or journals simply reject the paper. We don't need this garbage.
Mhm.
But I like to be constructive and help cooperate and thereby make you grow.
Mhm.
But that's, you know,
Mhm.
That's very true. You know, Dr. Klassen, I also have a follow-up for Shahinda's question.
mhm.
Maybe one way of doing it is foregrounding the more recent research at
Yeah,
the top
yeah,
of the each chapter of the thesis, and then
yeah.
later on you can refer to the older research.
Yes,
But
that's right. Yeah,
like you can do both, but
yeah,
foreground more, like mention that at the top.
yeah. I
Yeah, and
totally agree.
concerning the thesis, I'll tell you one of my secrets in writing your articles. I always highlight my thesis in yellow or in red, and I keep revisiting it.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and sometimes I put my thesis as a heading in every single page
Yeah,
so that I don't lose track of what I'm saying.
right. Good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. Or revisiting it regularly. Am I still on track? Another way of handling it would be that before you write your paper, you create a structure. You have a really nice scaffold of your whole paper, but many times I cannot do that because it evolves in what I'm reading, and suddenly, I realize, no, I need to go this way and that way. So, but I don't mind myself to go back and correct my thesis or change the title.
me too. Do you ever do an outline or you just
Not
write
really that much.
not
No,
an yeah.
I write my papers fairly quickly, so I don't need to do that all planning. That is all pretty much at my fingertips.
Mm.
Oh, but I also have a very interesting little trick I did not share. I notice many times when I'm a little bit lost in my thoughts and I don't quite make progress, then I take a short break, maybe 10, 15 minutes, do some exercise outside, whatever, get away, and then return. It is, this moment of refreshment is incredible. You look at the own paper and you say, wait a minute, what did I write? That doesn't make sense. And I scrap it then right away. Yeah.
We have a couple of questions in the chat too.
Oh,
And
yeah, please read them.
yeah, so Dr. Dina Shazli has a question, and then Mariam Wael has a question too.
And scrolling through the chat, but it's so much I cannot quite identify.
Y-
But why don't you say something, please? But I don't hear you.
More of a comment, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah, I think artificial intelligence is useful when it's used correctly. You said we used Google and other tools to get knowledge and information. If it's used the right in the right way,
yeah.
it's helpful for us. But if it's used in wrong way, for example, to cheat, uh, then it's dangerous.
Okay, I totally agree, but I would like to add one more point. And this is a very personal point. If I know that a piece of paper that I've written consists to some extent of AI produced texts, then I will feel ashamed. There's an element of shame, an element of honor. For me to write my own paper, I'm very proud of it. Even if I do not say something very profound, but I want to say it myself. That's my ethical principle. And I know a lot of people use increasingly AI because it makes their work easier. I understand, but I rather work a little bit more by myself and then I can be proud of my own writing than to feel ashamed or embarrassed. That's just my take.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. I'm not only a researcher, I also write quite a bit of poetry. And let's say you write a poem or a short story or a novel, and you have to admit at the end, oh, all these nice words were just AI produced. Then why did you try to write a poem? It has to be my work. So I don't care how much time it takes. It's my work. And I want to be proud of my work. My poem, not the computer. The computer can write very easily. You know, you can ask ChatGPT, here's some keywords, write a poem with maybe 4 stanzas, each consisting of 5 verses and maybe parallel rhymes. It writes it quickly, but is that what you want to do yourself? I don't know. Right? I think we agree, right? Okay, something else? Yeah, Asmi, you want to ask again?
Yes, please. Correct me if I'm right or wrong. You don't prefer to use theories or to apply theories, critical theories on papers. Yeah, for example, you prefer to talk about topics, miracles, peace and happiness, society. Am I right or wrong? Because yeah, last time I was writing it, I was using the critical approach of interdisciplinarity, and you didn't accept it easily. And this time I'm using the new hystericism, and I wonder if you will accept it or not as a theory to apply in my paper. So, what's your opinion?
Oh, very flexible. I mean, everyone writes his or her own style, methodology. And if you have a good theory, I mean, let's say you want to write about the history of emotions, some topic, whatever it might be, and you begin with Freud, maybe. Okay, fine. Or you have a Marxist approach and you want to look into that, fine. Develop that first. I'm a little bit worried that when I start with theory or when I use a lot of theory, I just spend so much time on the theory and not enough time on the sources. So it's a balancing act. I'm absolutely not at all against theory. No, rather the opposite. I think in most cases, no, in all cases, really 100%, there is always theory. Just sometimes you are transparent, you bring it out, and many times it's hidden. But you always have a theory. Whatever you write, it is driven by theory. Yeah? Sometimes it's explicit, and many times it's implicit. It depends on you, I would say, how much you want to make it explicit. You know, there are countless examples. But I also can tell you one thing where I'm a little bit sensitive. I'm rather critical, let's say, of great theoreticians such as Foucault, Lacan, Derrida, because, or Elias, Deur, and many others, or Bourdieu, because I think they're famous and so much acknowledged because they don't know enough. They just used sort of some set of data, historical data, and then developed their ideas, which are fantastic. But I often question them, and I find the conclusions they reach not reliable. So I'm just very careful. But of course, bring them in if they are valid for your argument. Because you know they have determined the discourse, and you must show somehow in your research that you're engaging with the research. So it depends, really. I have no firm position there.
I have my own perspective, which is trying to apply new contemporary theories on medieval Arabic literature, for example. So in this way, we can connect the past with the present,
Yeah,
or
of course.
tackle an old text texts in a contemporary perspective,
Yeah.
theoretical perspective.
Yeah, because that
This is
allows you to see something new.
yes,
Let's
a
say,
kind of novel.
yeah, I have no problem with that as long as you're respectful to the original text and
Okay.
don't impose something into the text. So let's
Okay.
say you are interested in gender studies. So you want to explore really what it means, and then you use the current research on gender, for example, or eco-criticism, or whatever, or cultural anthropology, or the new materialism, or spatial, the spatial turn. There are countless examples. And if you can use those new theoretical models to tease new insights out of an old text, why not? Great. Thereby you make the old text relevant for us today again. So I think that's valid. Okay. So it's almost 1 o'clock, so I've almost 2 hours, so that's not a problem for me. I just wonder, have we exhausted all questions?
We
I
still
check.
have 2 questions in the chat.
Okay, and look at
Dr. Dina Shazli, she has a question.
okay.
Because we can't figure read it because we can't figure it out. We can't see it.
But she's here. Uh, if she wants to read it herself. But she's basically asking about. She's thanking you for your illuminative lecture,
Yeah, I see
She
and
this.
has a,
Yeah, I always
she has a
see a
problem
gap
with her
between
mind.
our research and the reproducibility of results. I usually try to bridge it in my research, which I find really pressurizing. What do you see in this respect? Such a gap in case I am right. Reproducibility. Well, what does that mean? In the sciences, we say, of course, you only can, the results have to be reproducible. Otherwise, they are not trustworthy. It's just subjective. That's the reason why 99.9% of all natural scientists believe that there is climate change. Let's put it this way, at least, because they can prove it through many, many different tests. But I think we do something similar as well in our humanities-based research, because my argument that I bring forth needs to hold water. So if I have a reviewer who can easily kick me down because one argument, one point, my thesis collapses, then I have no reproducibility. And I think that is important. We follow the same ideas. Of course, our arguments change in the course of time, so that's okay as well. But I think we follow the same ideals. We need to be verifiable. We need to, we need to pass the test of time. And by the way, that's the reason why we can refer to older research, not all, but some, which really still tells us all what we need to know. And that is just very powerful. So that is the same thing you're just talking about, reproducibility. Maybe for the scientists, it's a little bit different than for us, because they run all kinds of tests for the same procedure. But we do the same thing. We have lots of people viewing certain text and examining what this text might have to tell us. So let me use a simple example. Last year I published a book on criticism of the court, and evil kings. And I have a whole chapter on the fables by Marie de France, because I discovered in her fables she has very severe criticism against evil rulers or counselors or barons and so forth. That's what I've observed. So now any scholar can enter this field, can enter the investigation of these fables, and can reproduce, hopefully, the same results by saying, you're absolutely right. That's what she says. That's what she says. Okay, so this is part of a longer discourse she presents. So that is the reproducible result. So if I could not say something very reliable, then any reviewer would be able to dismiss my paper, and then my paper is useless. I think we rely on the same effort to be reproducible. Otherwise, what validity would our research have? So that's the reason why we present all the research and demonstrate, okay, this is what those people have said, this is what those people have said, but now I'm reaching the new level, and this will be, okay, this is the image. This will be the rung on the same ladder. And in the future, hopefully somebody can step on that rung and then reach higher level. So I
Thank you,
see very
Professor
strong.
Classen.
Yes.
There was this question I'm interested in as well. Dr. Dina was asking, what is this read backward tip that you shared? So could
Yeah.
you just like tell us how we do it?
Yeah, very simple. Actually, that is an advice my own doctoral father gave me. Okay, so he said once he is done with his paper, he turns to the very end and sort of reads sentence by sentence backwards. And thereby everything sounds different.
Okay.
But there are many different efforts. I mentioned using different font size, different font, any kind of methods to distance yourself from your own text. Because then suddenly you hear yourself. Or, what you also can do, you read the text loud if you're unsure about it. Loud, and then you hear everything in a different way. Whatever strategy works for you, but as much as you can create a hermeneutic distance between yourself and the text, the better for your own for your own self-review. Does it help?
Yeah, or simply print it out instead of reading it from the screen all the time if you...
Oh, that is such a good idea. Absolutely. I know this in my own eyes. I read virtually everything only online, but I know you're so correct. And to be really critical, I print it out and give it to someone else. That really allows you to see things in a very different light.
Yeah.
And that's really important. Or, frankly, let it rest for a while. Once you're done, put it away and then wait maybe 2 days and then return. It all depends on your own abilities. As long as you remember, nothing you write is perfect.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
tragic, but it's also humbling, and that's what it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Classen. It has been a wonderful and entertaining, quite an entertaining discussion. It's the kind of unwritten rules to the academic game. So we're really grateful for your insights and the beautiful tips that you shared. I'm going to try this backward thing.
Okay. Try it. Very good. Thank you so much. And I hope we will have a chance sometime in the near future. I don't know how, that we meet in person. I think I learned you are the American University of Cairo, right?
I am in October University.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And we're doing this conference with, that will be the conference in December.
Okay. Very good. Let's see. Well, because I tried to visit all kinds of universities while I was in Cairo. It was not always possible because the
And
consulate.
we're looking forward to have your talk.
Yeah, thank you. It's already all done, and it's yeah. And I've reviewed it recently quite extensively, so the paper is ready. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. Thank you.
But you know, Dr. Classen, Ghada also works with the AUC, because he was asking me before when I talked to Dr. Classen, and yeah, so it's AUC, but Ghada is also works at 6 October University. So that's why Dr. Classen is asking you about the connection.
Yeah. Okay, I got it now. It's like this event is the Nile TESOL and it's part of the American University.
Yeah,
This
okay. Because I wonder whether I was at your university. Where is it located?
that
East or west?
we're having now the city of 6th of October, but we actually met
I think I lost you. I lost you.
The connection
at Ferris University, Alexandria. Okay. Type here.
Wait,
Is
no,
it
I'm
better now?
confused. Where? Yeah,
So-
it's better now.
Does it look? I mean, is the internet better now?
Yeah, better, right. So, but this whole talk was part of this your research group, right?
Okay, so we actually met in Ferris, back in Ferris University.
When you came to Alexandria, Dr. Classen.
Yeah.
Not last spring, the spring before. Ghada was there.
But you know, officially, you're called Nile.
Yeah, that was the
TESOL
Ferris
Official
University.
Research Group.
Mm-hmm.
And that is located where? What is the base?
American University.
American University in Cairo. Okay, very good. Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see each other again in December. That's nice. I'm looking forward to that. And then hopefully somehow
we're doing different things. Networks.
Yeah. I mean, Zoom is nice, but it's still not quite the same.
Yeah, inshallah, I come to Egypt for a third time.
Yeah, that would be lovely. That would be really great.
We can,
Pull
unless
our
you can
resources together.
put our knowledge together.
Yes.
Can go to the and have lunch. Fish.
Definitely. Definitely. The connection is not really serving me well. So unless there are any other questions, I would love to thank Professor Classen very much for the talk today.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
And so let's call it tonight. So
yes, it's late for you. Very late. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Next
And
time.
thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you very much. Okay, very good.
Thank you for organizing this, Dr. Ghada.